welcome in to the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Hello.
It is Monday, November 20th, 2023. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, where you can support us for $247 and $10. Get your name in the video credits, early access to our videos, access to our Discord server, and more. Richard is remote today, so
Hello.
that's
Yes.
why if you're watching, you don't see him, but you can hear him because he's beaming in via Skype.
Yes.
We have a couple discussions today. We've got some news talking Knights of the Republic. I've got some stuff I want to get off my chest about Game Awards. This year's a weird year because it's like one of those years where there's probably, I don't know, 4 games that could win Game of the Year if they were in a year by themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure,
But
yeah.
So many games got backed up by delays and whatnot.
Yep.
That they're all like competing in the same arena. So, but Richard, I know we'll start with you because I'm excited to hear your thoughts on Alan Wake, but I know you had some crashing issues with Alan Wake, and I don't know if you ever got those fixed.
I did not get them fixed.
No.
So but that's not a problem, thankfully. I did come back from a break and I started up Alan Wake again. I was very excited to play it. But I believe what happened was, and this is an assumption here, I believe what happened was the 1 or 2 updates that occurred while I stopped playing pushed through. And so in the first boss fight that I was playing, what would happen was every time I either died or around halfway throughout the fight, I would say the second phase, the game would crash. Like it would just give up and it would go to the PlayStation 5, reporting error screen. And I would have to start over. This happened about 5 to 7 times before I was just like, I kind of think I'm going to have to restart this. And I had messaged Tyler already about it, and he mentioned to reinstall the game, and of course that's a great suggestion. But I kind of felt like I wasn't too. If I were to play the game again, I could get back to that fight faster than install. And so I started a new game just for the heck of it, and yeah, it turns out you can pretty much skip every cutscene and almost all dialogue options. So I essentially just speed ran the thing up until the first boss fight, and so yeah, surpassed that, and now I'm having no issues whatsoever.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
playing the game, absolutely astounded by Alan Wake 2, and I am more than thoroughly enjoying it. And I think that there is so much to like about the game, not only narratively but from a gameplay mechanic standpoint. Enjoy as well. And right now, I know you'll know what I'm talking about, Tyler, but I'm in the hotel. I'm in the hotel as Alan. Yeah, and I'm trying to... There's a mechanic it's a smaller mechanic in Alan Wake where you can freely switch between characters. And I feel like the way I probably should be playing it is to play a chapter as Alan, then a chapter as Saga, vice versa. However, I think I got confused by the first encounter between Alan and Saga because you're both in different places and they actively show them trying to talk to each other. And the next time you meet each other, it's the same occurrence. You're trying to talk to each other. And so context is telling me that would probably happen at the end of every chapter. But it appears it doesn't. So I think I've played 2 chapters as Alan already. And so I think I'm going to have to course correct and go back to Saga. However, the part I'm at with Alan in the hotel is so jaw-droppingly good atmospherically that I can't pull myself away from stopping to play as him. And I probably would say so far, for me, certain parts of the hotel are the most frightening that the game has offered so far. I think above all, what I have always loved about Remedy and what I feel like no one else comes close to them when it comes to like game development is level manipulation.
Yes.
And that is something that Quantum Break did a tiny bit, but you really started to see that a lot in Control. Is kind of the star of the show in Control, really. And of course, now Alan Wake, and the usage of themes regarding changing narratives, literally, or light sources, is just jaw-droppingly good, and I don't think anybody else can replicate what they're doing. I love all of the mysteries going on at once, because there's I think more than 3 of them at the moment. The biggest of which is the cult. The cult that is ever present in Saga's story and Alan's story. And in me and my friends were talking about it the other night. In Saga's story, the cult that you are investigating and following, I would compare them to the cult not the cult. I would compare them from the KKK in Django Unchained. If you've ever seen Django Unchained.
Oh yes, like sort of.
Yes.
Disorganized or kind of dumb.
They're 90% incompetent.
So yeah, absolutely. What they do, their actions in the real world, are terrifying. You get to see the consequences of some of the things that they do, which is really rough. But when you find their inner notes to each other and their discussions they have, it's just a band of some of the most stupidest people. And there's a lot of laughs to be had. However, when you play as Alan, the cult in they're the same cult, but in his world or where he's at, it's quite demonic and quite frightening, especially with the particular hotel area when you have to use the word devil specifically. There's a lot of really good imagery that also harkens back to Max Payne, which is something.
That's the thing I wanted you to see so bad. Okay, and I'm going to spoil it here for a second. Not spoil, but if you don't want to hear a little bit about Alan Wake 2, mute it for like a minute or two. Skip ahead. So, Richard, the thing I wanted you to see was all the stuff it does with Alex Casey's character, right?
Yes.
And then Alex Casey steps out of the shadow, and he's dressed like Max Payne, and it's just like, stop it.
You can tell that they still love Max Payne so much. It's unfortunate that they don't have the rights anymore, but yeah, it is so painfully obvious how much they love that franchise and want to give back to it in some way, shape, or form. And maybe that's why they took on the option to do the remakes that are coming out, just to give it another shot. But even then, watching Alex Casey's story unfold in concurrent with Alan, it's I would like to use the phrase "no one else can do it better," but at the same time, no one else is trying either. If that makes sense.
No, it totally does. So much about Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 is, I don't know, it's maybe the most unique horror game I have ever played, because it totally does whatever it wants, whenever it wants to do it, and it all just works so well. And yeah, the scenes you're talking about are the scenes where Alan will run into, I'm not sure how you're supposed to contextualize it, if it's like this is Alan's writing that he is watching happen in front of him or something, but you'll get like those noir moments, because the story within the story is that Alex Casey is tracking down the cult in an Alex Casey book, right? So it's like you run into those moments where he has that noir moment where you see Alex Casey, he's like flicks a cigarette and he's narrating something, this town is a sewer, that kind of thing. And you get Sam Lake like looking back and forth in front of you with those projections. It's just, I know what you mean. It's just like, and that's partially why I compared it to Silent Hill 2, because Silent Hill 2 was so like weird and luminal. You run down a road and the road just keeps going forever, and then the road stops, and it's just like, it's so unnatural. And there are moments like that in Alan Wake where you're in a spot in a place, and it's just the layout, the geography is clearly surreal, but they pull it off so seamlessly.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I know you know the answer because you've beaten the game already, but I'm still questioning whether the fact that characters in Alan Wake's story, how do I phrase this? So in Alan Wake's story, there are two people who have a somewhat importance to progressing the narrative, particularly with Alex Casey. One of them shows up at the beginning for a quick moment. He's speaking to a woman. And then in the hotel currently, he's speaking to the, not the director, but he's the one who put together the play that you're investigating.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm almost certain those two characters were the witnesses from the beginning of the game to the cult murder.
I mean, I can tell you, yes.
Okay.
Because when you go as Saga into the diner, she talks with those two people. And that's the thing. Alan Wake 2, it'll give you answers toward the end of the game, but those answers aren't going to answer everything. So you're never going to know what reality is. And that's part of something that I just love about the game. You think you have something figured out, and I think Remedy knows that they're allowing you to figure it out, and then Remedy just does something weird, throws a curveball, and it's so much fun.
And that's great. And I'm not expecting it's just one of those like, hey, wait a minute, like type situations. And I don't, if they amount to anything like more or less, it doesn't affect the end game, or the end goal of everything. But it is also, I get really giddy. I have those Leo moments, when pointing at the screen when you do see like Ati and you hear him like, oh hey, I'm sleeping. And it's like, oh my god, awesome. And then like there was I'm almost certain another character from Control pops up really quick, at least for me so far at the moment. I don't know if they come into play later, that I'm very excited about if it is what I think it is. So it's an astonishing game, and it definitely is my favorite game of the year. But before I have that set in stone, I need to beat the game first.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you to see the rest of the game because it's so good. It's so good.
And god damn, every single one of those ending chapter songs are like phenomenal, songs.
Yep. And that's sorry, go ahead.
The musical.
Oh, did you found that?
No, I did that. Yeah. And I sat there playing it, and I was kind of like, I can't believe they're doing this. But I shouldn't expect it, because we got a pseudo musical in Control, or at least a music video, but it's very, very good.
Okay, do you want to say a couple things about Genshin Impact?
Just real quick, I'll try not to be long, but we have finished the main story for this new area, and I think that Genshin Impact has a lot of problems being Genshin Impact. There is, for me, and I know I've dumped a lot of time in this, and I know that I've talked about it a lot, there is a very good overarching saga across the whole series. The problem is you have to spend a lot of time to get to it. So as much as I can sit here and tell you guys how good each of these story beats or chapters are, the average person can never get to it. So I feel like a fool for sitting here continuously trying to tell you guys how good this stuff is. And yet you can't experience it yourself. But we just finished 4.2 finished the main story of the Archon quest, which is the main storyline of Genshin Impact. And the Archon who I spoke about, her name is Farina. She is very Marie Antoinette, she's a brat. She is she loves cake, haha, I get it. And she loves sweets, but there was always something that she never she was always putting on a front. There's this very famous, it was my favorite part of last patch, but she was confronted by one of the main villains and essentially was just like, hey, you're not doing anything for your nation, but, my people are. And if you're not going to do what you need to do, then something's going to happen. And she keeps dodging the questions and whatnot. We finally get the answers to why she won't do anything for her nation. And it turns out to be one of the most heartbreaking and emotional twists for a character I've encountered in a very long time. But it culminated in one of the most heartbreaking and tragic stories for one of the gods, for Farina herself. And we get to see what she personally has to have been dealing with this entire time, with her knowing that her nation is doomed to fall, and yet she can't do anything about it. It's by far probably the best thing that they have done in the game. But once again, it's something that not everybody is going to be able to experience, which sucks. But as somebody who has, it was such a treat, and I love watching all of the other streamers and players who play the game react to it, and all the emotions running wild from everybody. But it was such an awesome turn of events, and a free game keeps giving if you want to put the time into it. So that's all.
Connor, what have you been playing?
I really haven't been playing much.
Okay.
Been doing a lot of D&D prep.
D&D prep?
Yes.
Okay. It's not a video game, so we can't talk about it.
No. We're forbidden from talking about it.
Is there anything you want to say about D&D?
If you're interested in D&D, go ahead and find a group and play it.
Hey, why don't you just replace D&D with Baldur's Gate 3? Just say you're doing a Baldur's Gate 3
there you go.
It
counts.
Setup.
Baldur's
counts,
Gate
yes.
3 is about the closest I think I've ever felt playing a game to an actual D&D session. So
yeah, but I don't play D&D, I DM.
Oh, that's
so
right.
It would be like being the dev for Baldur's Gate 3.
The overworked and exhausted dev. Well, okay, that's fine. So the game that I've been playing the most of is Jedi Survivor, which, let me tell you guys something right now.
Oh?
I did not know what to... So, Richard, I remember you and I talking, well, all three of us, but me and you specifically, Richard, talking about when Jedi Fallen Order came out. We all, I think, generally liked it, but there was a lot of things we disliked. I remember I wasn't a fan of the parkour. I thought the controls weren't that great, but overall it was generally positive. Jedi Survivor is not only an improvement in just about every aspect, it is also a really damn good game. I'm really surprised. The game came out, it was poorly optimized, so I think it reviewed well, but then you had the optimization issues, so there was like two different narratives going on at once. So at the time I was like, okay, this will be a game that maybe I play later on in the year. And so I found it for like half off, $40, brand new PS5 at GameStop the other day. So I was like, what? Hell yeah. So I got it, took a chance. I was like, okay, I'll try this out. And it's really freaking good so far. The writing is better. The characters are a little more defined. Star Wars for me is something that, I don't know, I have like mixed feelings about now. Yeah. Where the Star Wars IP is now is sort of all over the place and weird and crazy, but Jedi Survivor, I think, is fitting in really nicely because it's telling its own story. It is clearly connected to the Empire, but there are other things going on. It touches on Star Wars lore in other ways. So I think it's nice to have something that, I don't know, isn't connected to like the major future of the franchise or other major characters. It's cool to see, something that can stand on its own, that's independent. But yeah, the combat's excellent. So the combat's excellent. It's really good. I was going to say so far, but I just think it's just excellent. It's a little more in depth, I think. I got into a fight with a boss, and this boss also had a lightsaber, and it was the first time in a video game where I was spending large chunks of the boss fight just like nose to nose with this boss, swinging my saber and then blocking when they would swing and swinging mine back. Like it was an actual intense like duel, like lightsaber duel, where we were right up against each other for minutes at a time and just like whacking back and forth. And I think you did that like back in the like Jedi Academy games and stuff like that. But this one, it's really well done. And there are a couple things that I'm not a huge fan of. One of them is that the feedback is kind of weird. So I will block shots or block attacks and think that I got hit, but I'm fine. So there's kind of weird things like that. But other than that, it's really freaking good. I would highly recommend it. The parkour is better. It's still not perfect. It's still a little like off here and there, but it is so much better than it was the first time around. And levels are a little more open-ish, I guess. They're not like open world. I actually think maybe a good comparison might be like Metal Gear Solid 5's Afghanistan, where it's narrow, but it's lots of narrow pathways, and then every now and then they'll open up into like a larger area. And then between those areas, there are caves and other things that you can go through and explore. And I'm having a lot of fun with that. But yeah, I'm really surprised about how much I'm enjoying it. The theme this time around is it really, I won't spoil something, but it really thickens the theme. It is a Western. And it goes out of its way to tell you that we're going to lean into the whole Star Wars Western vibes with this one. Every now and then when Cal like leaves somebody away, you're done talking to them or whatever, he'll say, take care now, something like that, you know. Or there's a cutscene where somebody's being beaten up outside of a cantina, and Cal's like, hey, stop it. And the camera turns, and Cal's got his hand on his belt, and his hips are like cocked, and the wind is like, the dust is blowing by his feet. So it's very like
spaghetti Western,
very Clint Eastwood. Yeah. So they really lean into that, but it's so freaking cool. I think the story is somewhat predictable up to this point, but that's okay because it's really interesting finding going on and progressing. But yeah, the theme of Survivor is an interesting one because, and I hope that there's more of a hook to Cal's character. It's good and interesting thus far, but I think with a lot of the best characters, there's always like a big, I don't know, a big turning point or a big hook into something that changes them as a person. And Richard, I think maybe the first hook in Alan Wake 2 is when you go into the diner and Rose is like, "Oh, your daughter died," and you're like, "What?" Like, hold on, excuse me. You want to roll back that for a second? No, but so Cal, the theme of surviving is interesting because Cal, it's not necessarily desperation, but it's this balance of like hope in the face of the Empire. And at this time in Cal's story, it's the Empire's at its height. So it feels incredibly hopeless. But Cal is sort of this like center of optimism for him and his companions. And he has to do certain things to survive, which I think is interesting. So I'm excited to learn more about that. The other thing is I needed footage of the game for a video that is going to be done here soon. So I got back into Elden Ring. I felt the scratch. I got back into it, and cool. I don't know what else to say, but I got into Elden Ring, and I don't know if you guys remember just how magnificent that open world is. It is quite amazing. Of course, I admire it, and then I turn around and some giant skeleton with like an 18-foot long sword appears and demolishes me or something. But man, I'm really excited for that. I'm actually kind of excited for that DLC now. I really have to be in the mood. Oh, the other thing about Jedi Survivor, it is a roguelike. I mean, not a roguelike. It is a Souls-like, but it's much, much easier. There's tons of There's tons of shortcuts you can unlock really quickly. Combat is punishing. If you get it wrong, you can lose a lot of health, but it's nowhere near as punishing as like other Souls-likes. So I guess it's like a Souls-like light in that sense. It has a similar structure, but boss fights are nowhere near as difficult. There was one boss fight pretty early on that I had to do the old Dark Souls, keep banging my head into the wall until I beat it type thing. But ever since like the first couple hours, I don't think I have... maybe once or twice, maybe a couple boss fights I have died, but it hasn't been very often. So I'm not a huge fan of the Souls-like genre, so if you don't like Souls-like games, I would still recommend Jedi Survivor because and there is a difficulty slider as well. So it's already on the easier side, and you can also turn the difficulty down to make it even easier. So yeah. Highly recommended. I hope it sells well because it's too bad the game came out and it wasn't optimized and all that, because the game itself is fantastic. And in any other year, I think it should be in Game of the Year discussion this year, even considering what we have. But in other years, it may have been a game that won because it is really, really good. So, okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. Real quick, sorry, I wanted to make another game I've been playing real quick is I tried out Alien Fireteam Elite.
Nice.
And I was playing it with my friends last night, and it's a fine game. It's not. It's kind of what I expect. To be honest, I got a little bit bored in the first level, but there are neat ideas. However, I made this really good joke that I don't know if you guys would enjoy. But as we were in one of the first parts of the game where you have to, I think it was the end part of the first level where you have to wait for an elevator to come down, an elevator shaft. And you're sitting defending. I told my friends, I said, the great thing about Alien games is that there's usually not this, or the Alien series is that there's usually not this many, and they normally attack alone. So it's kind of weird playing because it is a good game. I like its style. I think the guns feel a little weak, and I think the character moves a little too fast. He doesn't have any weight to him. Or to them, excuse me, but it feels weird to play because it's not very Aliens-like. Does that make sense?
Yes, because it's almost like a zombie shooter kind of thing.
Right,
you know, you're just shooting monsters.
Sure.
Even in James Cameron's Aliens, it's like you never really see them. It's like they're always shooting at them or something. Mm-hmm. And every time one of the members die, like what's Bill Paxton's character, he dies because they like grab him from underneath or something. So there's still that horror element to it. So I understand what you mean. When you see a bunch of xenomorphs running down a hallway at you and you just mow them the fuck down, they're not as terrifying. Definitely.
Like wheat before the scythe.
Yes. But I know what you mean. But I think it tries to be more of like an Aliens, because the best Alien game is Alien Isolation. That's the one that captured 1979. But or 77, whatever. But no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Do you have the smart gun? Do you have the class that uses the smart gun?
No, I chose the doc.
Okay. A very useful class.
So yeah, but so I didn't get to see any of the other stuff. We didn't play for too long. We did the first level, and that was about it. So. Well,
let me tell you, if you get the smart gun, you can basically rubber band your trigger and go make yourself dinner, because that thing fires and it does not miss. Be careful when it runs out of ammo.
It's like the Titanfall 2 smart pistol.
Yes, that thing can't wait to kill aliens because it automatically aims real quick. Okay, let's hit the ad and talk news. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Okay, Connor played the wrong commercial. So
they wouldn't know that, Tyler.
Well, they know now.
Fuck you.
It's fine. Who cares? It's fine. Follow us on Patreon. Follow us on Patreon. There's the commercial you need. Okay, so we're gonna talk It's a joke. It's fine. I do kind of feel bad because Connor looks so sad when they press the button. Okay. So let's talk. I wanted to have a discussion about Game Awards. Because we on this show back in the day, we tried to do like our own award thing. And eventually it was like, why give out awards? Why not just say, here are all the games that are amazing. Let's just have a big, these are the best games of the year type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I know we have like differing opinions on whether or not we should give awards or how awards should work or whatever. So I kind of just wanted to have a big freewheeling discussion about that. Real quick, the Game Award nominees, which I think, I don't know, maybe most people consider like the de facto official awards now.
Yeah, I can tell you they do. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Annoyingly so, yeah.
The nominees for Game of the Year are Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and then Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So those are your Game of the Year nominees. We're not going to go through all the different categories because there's billions of them. But so yeah, I have a couple of directions to go. I guess I'll just throw out the thing, and I know we've talked about this in the past, but just the general idea of awards. Do we think that is, I don't know, do we think it's appropriate? Do we think it's somewhat antiquated? Go ahead, you guys can take it from there, or any direction you want.
I think it's for me, my problem is that there are plenty of I'm not going to sit here and say that Game Awards is not credible, because these nominees are chosen by publications themselves. It's just a lot of it. I think there's a percentage of how much viewers can vote on compared to, like, the viewers don't vote on the winners. It's a combination of both viewers and the publications as well.
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken. But the problem is there's also so many other credible awards that are given out throughout the year that nobody seems to, the general public doesn't seem to pay attention to. And I understand why. The Game Awards is big, it's flashy, it has exclusivity, specifically with game announcements or spectacle. And so people just kind of, the outlook seems to meld itself into Game Awards being the de facto decider when it comes to Game of the Years. Because I do browse TikTok quite frequently, and of course I have gaming content, and every now and again I'll get like a Ghost of Tsushima video, and then in the comments people will be, man, I wish this won Game of the Year instead of whatever game won that year. I forgot which one, it doesn't matter, but the point is like, well, Ghost of Tsushima did win Game of the Year. It won a lot of Game of the Year awards from other publications, from other, but they go with Game Awards. But it's in everybody's eyes, just like the Oscars are, just like the Grammys are, the Tonys, whatever. So that's probably the biggest gripe I have with it.
Okay.
As far as like game, award stuff goes.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think that's probably part of it, because I don't know. I've just don't care, I guess. And game awards are going to have certain biases that I think are tough to overcome, right? Like a game like Everspace 2 is never going to win Game of the Year, because Game of the Years are always going to be, for the most part, I think, are going to be the big budget, big studio. Every now and then you'll get a Celeste, or every now and again you'll get a PUBG, but I think those are exceptions to the norm. Because other than that, I think you're generally going to get, right, those are I don't want to call them like Game Awards bait, because I don't think they set out to win awards. They set out to make good games.
Yes.
But I do think there are like certain biases that come into play that stop other games from like entering conversations that they should be a part of. I agree with you. And I think maybe that's why we decided to just go with move away from awards, because it's like, what does giving, I don't know, like between Baldur's Gate 3 and Alan Wake 2, I really don't, there's totally different games. I really don't know what the use is in giving one a trophy and keeping the trophy away from the other one.
Right.
Gaming is better with both of them. Mm-hmm. So I just don't understand why. I don't know what giving an award does outside of it being like a
A gold star.
Or like a TV moment, right?
Yes,
You know,
right,
the
of
last
course.
rose goes to Jack or something, you know?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's just more ammo for those who want to argue online with other people. And it's, if anything, it's like, yeah, well, my game is better than yours because it won Game of the Year, and that's not necessarily something to use in that instance because everyone's tastes are different. I love Alan Wake 2. It's probably going to be my personal Game of the Year, but it has everything I am looking for in a game I want to play right now.
Yeah.
Now, I personally, from outside looking in, immediately I'm like, no, it's Baldur's Gate 3. Like, to me personally, like, no doubt about it, that's going to win Game of the Year. Which is crazy to say in a year that Zelda came out.
Yeah.
However, one thing I've noticed when it comes to Zelda is Zelda came out in May, and as good as it was, and as good as I know you think it is, and I think it is, I hope it's not too insane for me to say that Tears of the Kingdom is Breath of the Wild, but you build stuff.
That's exactly what it is.
Well, I know, yeah. So
yeah.
And so after that, it was also quite the barrage of game. It was like that next month, Resident Evil 4. That next, like 2 weeks after that, Final Fantasy 16. 3 weeks after that, Armored Core 6. In between there, you had Hi-Fi Rush, and in between there, you had, or after that, you had like Sea of Stars, and you had, of course, Alan Wake 2, Super Mario Wonder, Spider-Man 2, and then even before Zelda, I think there was, of course, Star Wars, game that isn't even nominated, which I think is quite sad, is Octopath Traveler 2 that came out back in February.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just, this year has been insane. I think part of that we have to owe, unfortunately, to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the Game of the Years go, for this year, 6 slots is not enough because I can eat, because there's also an argument, and whether you think so or not, Hogwarts Legacy was another game that came out this year and people really enjoyed, and it was a solid game. But there's also there's a rumblings now of like, hey, how come Hogwarts Legacy isn't nominated? And it's like, okay, fine. Any year I could see it being up there, but with all the games that I just listed that aren't on that Game of the Year list that are just as good, not better, but just as good, or maybe can at least stand with them. Like, it's a very I wouldn't even say stacked year, more than a stacked year.
Yeah, it's like an unnaturally stacked year. It's like the version of an NBA super team. This should be illegal. It's ridiculous.
The USA team.
Yeah, exactly. I think I would. Yeah, I'm pretty much in total agreement there. But at the same time, awards, people do care about the awards, right? Like, yes. If you saw during the Golden Joystick Awards, if you saw, I forget his name, the leader at Larian Studios, how excited he was to win an award. I think back to the actress that played Senua in Senua's Sacrifice, like how happy she was to win that award for her acting and stuff. So people care about having their art and their work recognized.
Yeah.
And I think for people that lead studios, it's not just good for them. I think it makes them happy for their studio to see them win, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're a leader, they have other things to worry about. Like a coach when a team wins, it's like they're more happy for the players because the players finally lived up to their potential or something than the coach is actually proud of themselves or something like that. On one hand, I have all those troubles with Game of the Year awards and other things. I do think there needs to be some kind of like recognition where we say, hey, here's a celebration of the best games or whatever. Yeah. That way those studios can be recognized for the things that they did. Yeah, Everspace 2 is a big snub this year. What the hell? It's such a good game. And then you would have things like Horizon Zero, like Horizon, both Horizon games came out, Breath of the Wild and then Elden Ring. So it's like it never got a chance to. It was nominied, but it's like,
Yeah.
I think it could have deserved an award in either of those years. So I think maybe a solution is just to do like in the Hall of Fame, in sports Hall of Fames, there's dumb, really nerdy discussions about like first ballot, unanimous first. Those things are moronic, but if you get into the Hall of Fame, there's like, here's the Hall of Fame, right? Barry Bonds is in the Hall of Fame. Mickey Mantle's in the Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry.
He should be.
Mickey Mantle's in the Hall of Fame. Derek Jeter's in the Hall of Fame. Right, but there's
Pete
no
Rose
like
deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
there's no hierarchy. At least there's not supposed to be. If you're in the hall, you're there.
Yeah.
Right? And every year new people get added. John Smoltz is there, Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson. They're all in the hall. They're all enshrined. So I think maybe a solution is like every year just give Game of the Year awards.
Yeah, plural.
Just all these, like, include as many as you want. Say, here they are. I don't know. Maybe that's a better solution because I think it really matters to the people that win to see that their work is recognized, which is why, and this is one thing I wanted to get off my chest, I do think there are some things that are silly that we could lose, because I did watch, for the first time ever, I watched a little bit of the Golden Joystick Awards.
Yeah.
And so, like, one thing that I was like, come on, is Starfield won Xbox Game of the Year? And it's like,
There is a point where award shows become a parody of themselves.
It's like, how is it I don't know, because it's not even, it's an Xbox exclusive I get, I guess, but it's just, what do you mean Xbox Game of the Year? But it's on other platforms. So it's just kind of silly sounding to me. Spider-Man 2 was not nominated for PlayStation Game of the Year, but Spider-Man 2 was nominated for Game of the Year, which I didn't quite understand. Yeah, I don't know if there was a reason for that, but I didn't see it in there. And then I don't want to get, too into the weeds here, but then there was like best gaming community. Like, how do you judge that? Baldur's Gate 3 won. Is it the memes? Is it
that's a little weird because I would assume it is exactly what's up here, Final Fantasy 14 and Warframe, like online communities, and Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, is it the memes or is it the nude mods? Like, which one?
Yes.
Well, there isn't a nudes mod in Baldur's Gate 3. You just take everybody's clothes off and they are naked.
That's the polyamory mod.
Yeah, and then there was one I really disliked where it was best gaming hardware. And so the nominees were PSVR 2. I won't go through them all, but the nominees included PSVR 2, Turtle Beach headset, and a Samsung 990 Pro. So you had a VR headset. Yes, you had a VR headset, right? This amazing piece of technology, a nice pair of headphones, or an SSD that like most people buy, put in once and never look at again. Which, don't get me wrong, Samsung SSDs are nice, super important. They're the real MVP of gaming PCs. But like, it's how do you judge those things?
Yeah.
How do you compare an SSD with a PSVR 2 and be like, okay, which one do I need the most? I don't know. And like to give an award to. So it's stuff like that where it's like, if we're going to take awards seriously, and we should because people care, let's get rid of these like silly awards. The ones that are dumb and kind of ill-defined and I don't know, lay more into like the awards that I think are more defined and have more concrete reasons behind them.
Yeah, and if you are gonna like actually give out awards, they need to be more defined what the award is. The ongoing Game of the Year is the category from the Game Awards that pisses me off the most, because how is World of Warcraft never on that list?
I think do they not have a definition for it? I'm sure they have some kind of definition.
We'll just go over some of the nominees: Apex Legends, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, Genshin Impact, and Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
How is Cyberpunk on there, but World of Warcraft not?
Yeah.
World of Warcraft is the ongoing game.
Yeah. And so that's an award that's based on story, right? And by story, I mean like the narrative.
Awarded to the game for outstanding development of ongoing content that involves the player experience over time. That is what every World of Warcraft expansion is.
Okay, but I think that's an award that doesn't necessarily go to the best game. It goes to the best story. When I say story, I mean like news.
I'm
story.
not saying that
right?
World of Warcraft deserves to be the winner, or like
sure,
like having an ongoing game category and not including the largest MMO, the most successful MMO. EVE Online isn't included in this. EVE is one of the most successful MMOs that is still ongoing.
Yeah.
Them not getting at least a nomination, why not? What is the argument for them not being nominated for this?
Yeah, and part of the thing is like we have to start first at slot 1, which is this a good category to begin with? Which I think we agree is no.
Yeah, ongoing.
Once you go there, then you can bring up what about this game, what about this game, what about this game, and those are all in support of the category itself. Just isn't that good. But the point I was trying to make was that I think like Cyberpunk 2077 is up there because it's more about the narrative that Cyberpunk came out was really bad, shouldn't ever release that way. It's now better. They released Phantom, so there's all this like there's all this general positivity, and so you put it into a list because you want to give them credit for a redemption arc of sorts, which is the same reason why No Man's Sky wins awards in random category. Well, not random, but in like ongoing categories, right? Because you want to give No Man's Sky these awards for continuing to improve itself over the years and stuff like that. And you should give them credit, but I would agree, yes, that that's a silly category that I don't. Yeah,
ongoing is the worst category in the Game Awards, and that's including the esports awards.
Well, I don't follow esports, so I'm assuming there's people that do that can sit down and because are there stats in esports? I don't know if there's stats.
It's game by game because each game is different.
Yeah,
each esport game is different. So I mean,
that's true. But I don't know.
You can't have a codified like unless you're just doing win loss.
Yeah, and so so I think that would be another good example. Of like categories that don't make sense. But again, my biggest gripe is people care about winning these awards. So we should put that much care into, if we're going to have categories, we need to make the categories like as best as we can and make them as defined as we can and then move on from there. Instead of having so many of these awards that like don't make sense. So Richard, is there anything you were wanting to say?
No, I mean, not about anything you guys were talking about. It was just, I was looking at some of the other categories, best ongoing actually is when we started that conversation. And I looked at all the nominees and yeah, Cyberpunk, I feel personally is very weird. But I was like, oh, what other games are ongoing? Cause I was thinking about Destiny 2 and like other stuff. But there's one game that I got reminded of that, I'm trying to find to see if it's nominated, but something that we forgot about regarding its presence this year, and that's Diablo 4.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, and I mean, I don't follow the like hardcore players, but I'm still enjoying myself playing Diablo 4, and I do think it's a solid game, at least a step up visually and gameplay wise from the third one.
Yeah, I think Diablo 4. Let me look at the Golden Joystick Awards. It got a couple nominees in the Golden Joystick Awards, I think. But it
looks like it's best multiplayer on Game Awards and innovation and accessibility.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Which innovation and accessibility, I think, is a cool award because that's a topic that we should discuss more and have more.
I agree. Yeah.
Have visibility toward as well. So I think some kind of category like that is probably useful too. But yeah. So I don't know. I think I've pretty much gotten everything off my chest that I wanted to. Part of me is always going to be a little salty because people are it's weird. It's like a game comes out and it's bad and all people want to do is be mad at it and talk shit about it. And then a year later it's better and all of a sudden the conversation does not go from that to, okay, so how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? What can studios do? What kind of conversation should we have so that Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't happen again? But the conversation goes, wow, it's amazing. They did it. And listen, you should be proud of CD Projekt Red. And they did a good job. They worked their asses off. But maybe studios shouldn't be in that position in the first place. And it's the same thing with No Man's Sky. When No Man's Sky first came out, that should have never happened in the first place. Like Sony showing it off in this big E3 stage and all that. It should have released as an early access title. And there are a lot of games that released in an early access state that have similar stories to No Man's Sky, but they don't get talked about as much because they didn't get a ton of bad press when they released because they released into early access. I don't know. So maybe that's petty of me, but it's just a more nuanced conversation. It's like instead of going from complete shit on to, complete
Praise.
Celebration, why don't we have a discussion about this thing shouldn't happen at all?
Well, it's because these conversations happen online and the internet does not like nuance.
Well, I'm sure there are lots of people that would agree with me. I don't know. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, CD Projekt Red should be proud of the work that they put into it. But that studio should have never been put in that place in the first place. And I remember when the game came out, people were angry that the game was in that state. So it wasn't like the developers were all like, we're okay with this.
Yeah.
Clearly there were miscommunications. And so, yeah, anyway, is there anything else we want to say about?
Yes. I have a hot take about the Video Game Awards.
Okay.
And that is that even though it is a small percentage of the vote, the fans should not have a vote.
All right. Why is this?
Well, because you do get into situations where the people are like, well, why isn't X game being nominated, or why isn't X game winning? And it's like, well, quality-wise is why. For example, I've seen the argument for Starfield. For Starfield not being nominated for Game of the Year, and people calling it's being snubbed by the Game Awards, which no, the story in Starfield is nowhere near on par with the games that are being nominated.
Who made that argument?
It's Starfield fans. And that's why I feel that fans shouldn't get a vote.
Online fans that are making that argument. Well, same with Hogwarts Legacy too. There is like, hey, where's Hogwarts Legacy? And it's like, well, no.
and I think like if we are going to release a singular award for a Game of the Year, then it needs to be a game that is one of the best games released, and two, one that is going to have a lasting impact on gaming. And this holds true with all awards, that all like best of awards should be the best of that year, and ones that are going to have impactful meaning on the future. And I want to bring up 2014 Grammys for Best Hip Hop Album of the Year. All right. It went to Macklemore's The Heist. And that year, Magna Carta by Jay-Z was released. Mad City Good Kid, Mad City was released by Kendrick Lamar, and Yeezus was released by Kanye West. Three of the most iconic, influential albums that have been released in hip hop, all lost to Macklemore's Heist, which everyone has forgotten about.
Okay, I didn't know this about Macklemore,
and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that it won when three of the most influential albums to be released in hip hop came out that year.
What was I? Oh, I was going to say, I think the guys that won Starfield to win Game of the Year are probably that guy from Kung Pao who thinks that if he bleeds, he's actually the victor. I'm bleeding, which makes me the victor. We taught him that losing was winning. As a joke. Okay, anyway, moving on. A third party. Oh, Richard, were you going to read this one? I don't know.
I was, yeah. Let me pull it up here.
Okay, go ahead and read.
Oh, no. Where did it go?
I swear to God, if I have to read this.
No.
We'll do it live.
A third party apparently stopped Aspyr from releasing KOTOR's unreleased DLC. I reported on this a couple months ago, I think. But a lot of weird stuff is going on with the KOTOR remake. KOTOR and its remake.
Yeah.
All of this was first reported by Axios' Stephen Totillo. Here's the background. There's a class action lawsuit going on with Aspyr's recent re-release of KOTOR 2. Aspyr canceled plans for a restored content DLC that was supposed to be eventually added to the game, and someone sued them for this only because it was promised to everybody. It is apparently the Sith Lord's content, which you can only get via a mod on PC as of right now. It's never been officially released. Aspyr has never said specifically why the cut content was cut again, but CEO Ted Salok, I'm going to say that, said, quote, Aspyr believed it would be able to release the content, but a third party objected, and Aspyr was unable to do so, end quote. And this supposed third party remains a mystery.
My one is on Big George himself. He was like, no, don't do it.
George, he's got that much pull, and it's the Star Wars IP still somewhere.
Yeah. He's
walking around in jeans and a flannel, tucked in flannel, and white as snow sneakers going, I don't want this out there, okay? That's my George Lucas opinion.
Real quick, because I had a feeling you might have pulled out a impression, but have you heard Sam Witwer's George Lucas impression?
I have not. No,
It's actually quite insane. Like,
I'll
it
have
is
to listen.
really good. I'll
He-
try to find the video and send it to you.
He's
later.
a fantastic actor.
He is.
Mhm.
So I think this is a really good time to bring up preservation, piracy, stuff like this, as to what emulation, as to why it's a moral good,
Especially if it's a Nintendo game.
especially if it's a Nintendo game. Yes, and on this case, it has to do with something that was ported to Switch, but it's because stuff like this. I don't know. It's like why. It's hard for me to imagine why content like this is being held up by a third party, and unless it's a technical reason. But if it's a technical one, why keep it secret? I don't know. But again, that just bothers me because we have this corporation, we have some company somewhere that owns the rights to something.
It is a licensing thing.
And we're not getting it because of complex legalese that probably shouldn't exist in the first place. And it could probably be smoothed over if companies wanted to smooth it over. So because all of that red tape isn't going to get cut, this thing isn't going to release. And that really is really, really, really bothersome because it's like another piece of lost media that probably should resurface, but just isn't going to. And there aren't any good reasons for it to resurface. I was just talking about how good Jedi Survivor is, and we need more Star Wars games. Like, the thing about Star Wars is it is such a flexible IP. You can do so much with it, right? Because it's this gigantic universe. You know, you couldn't really do there have been similar attempts in the past, but you couldn't really do a Republic Commando in Star Trek. I'm not sure that would really work because Star Trek sort of has one thing that it does well, which is the exploration, Picard, that kind of thing. The TV shows go different directions. DS9 makes it more complicated. But, like, I don't think a shooter would ever work that well in Star Trek because Star Trek was never supposed to be an action show. But Star Wars, you can, which is why you can have a Republic Commando. There's a famous comic book that's like a horror stormtrooper comic book or something where a bunch of stormtroopers run into, like, zombies or some kind of terrifying alien, right? A game like that would be really cool. Imagine a game like Dead Space, but you're a squad of stormtroopers trying to survive. I mean, something like that could be cool. I don't know. It's such a flexible IP. You can do so much with it that it needs to get churning. And I guess that's a separate topic. But yeah, this bothered me. I wanted to talk about it. Have any of us ever played KOTOR 2? I played it
It's
long
been
time
a long
ago.
time.
Long time ago.
Never played KOTOR.
Oh, you never played any of them?
I mean, I played a little bit of KOTOR, but I was very young, and I was like, "How come I'm not swinging my lightsaber? This is stupid." And then I stopped playing.
And then I went on the internet and typed Starfield should win Game of the Year.
Yes, yeah, 15 years before the fact. But I went back to it. Oh, I'd probably say somewhere around like upwards of around 10 years ago when I was, of course, a lot older. And I was like, oh, wow, I get it. And I just never got to, go through the whole thing. But I did enjoy it the second time around.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just another win for why preservation is a moral good. Why
it's
emulation.
Weird. It would be nice if like contracts or whatever, just like, yeah, once you make this game and it's out, anything you did like developing the thing is like free game. As far as like if the DLC was never gonna come out officially, why not just release it?
Yeah.
I know it can't. They can't release it. It's not in a finished state. But why can't you?
Yeah, and
whatever.
And I don't think, and again, I don't think that the answer to that question is one that is a good answer. I think it's just an answer that's like a bunch of legal bullshit.
Right.
And, you can't leave preservation of IPs up to the IP holders. And that modding team, I'm sure they're still working on it. I hope they continue to work on it. But that's too bad. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm saying the same thing over and over again. It was just another thing for preservation that I like to bring up occasionally. Okay, last story real quick. Sega of America. Sorry. When I write titles to stories to like give us, as we introduce it. And as I was jotting these notes down, I thought of the butterfly meme. Like the guy with the glasses, Sega of America, and then he's holding up his hand. And he's saying, is this union busting? I don't know why. Anyway, the Communications Workers of America filed a dispute with the National Labor Relations Board. According to Kotaku's Ethan Gotch, the dispute says Sega of America apparently forced employees into a meeting telling them their jobs would be outsourced to Japan and Europe. Sega apparently wants to phase out all temporary workers, mostly QA and localization, by February 2024, and the news was reported directly to Allied Employees Guild Improving Sega, which is a union, I guess, a sub-union. That's not the correct term, but they're like underneath the Communications Workers of America. If I understand the situation correctly, I am not a labor lawyer. Nobody is, except for like 6 people, so go talk with them. If I understand the situation correctly, the complaint is that Sega is attempting to bypass bargaining by going directly to the employees rather than going through the union itself, right? This is known as something called direct dealing, which you're not supposed to do. I think it is actually illegal for you to do, because then you're trying to like put pressure on individual employees as opposed to having to go through the larger organization of the union, right? To do things like this. Because just because you're in a union doesn't mean you can't be fired or can't be laid off. But those terms have to be negotiated through the union, right? And that's the point of a union. So there's my Tyler's legal corner. I'm sure it was perfect. Senior QA tester Esley Williker told Kotaku, quote, it's disheartening to see such actions from Sega, as it unmistakably demonstrates bad faith bargaining and a refusal to recognize the valuable contributions of a significant portion of our colleagues, end quote. Real quick, it's Elise.
Yeah, I was going to say Elise.
Esley. I got a bunch of I saw all the letters and I completely through alphabet souped them and said something else. It is Elise Williker. Okay, I don't know if we had too much to say here. I just didn't want to let this story go without talking about it. As I told Connor yesterday, last week, I am now full on Marxist revolutionary. No, not really. I'm just, I've got this story and the previous story. I've got so little patience left for like corporations and their stupid bullshit. The industry needs to get better. I remember back in the day when we first started talking about unionization, it was like I tried to be
unbiased and impartial,
like centrist about it, which was stupid.
Yeah,
because
it was
dumb. Because I don't know why. It just
because you're trying to be a good journalist, but it was holding you back from being a great journalist.
You catch more bees with honey, but the problem is these aren't bees; these are spiders. So it's like that's all you're catching when you try to put out honey.
Hate honey.
Yeah, exactly. And they just want to kill you for putting out the honey, not take the honey for themselves. So the industry needs staunch labor protection. The scales are not balanced right now. We get news stories all the time about crunch, about other bullshit like that. And I saw some reaction to this, which was like, well, what's wrong with being laid off? And it's like, well, first of all,
so much.
First of all, does Sega have to lay these people off? Or is it just, no, their executives need to make 300 times more than the average QA tester, so we got to lay off a few employees? Like, how about we ask that question first? This is something that bothers me so much. And when we have systemic problems, and it's like, it's the same thing with video games, when a game releases with like microtransactions, and it's like, well, games are too expensive.
No, CEOs are paid too much.
What's like, how about we reduce executive compensation? How about we stop putting hair on Aloy's face? If that's not something that raises the budget, let's find things that we don't really need and cut those things. Instead of, I don't know, just the idea that like the only way to, that there's no systemic fix, that it's like other people that have to shoulder the burdens. It just bothers the shit out of me so much. So yeah. Was there anything you guys wanted to say?
Fuck Sega, and Alex Hernandez should not be protected by the unions.
I didn't catch that. What did you say?
Alex Hernandez should not be protected by the unions.
I don't understand that reference.
The umpire.
Angel Hernandez.
Angel Hernandez, damn.
Angel Hernandez.
Yeah.
You tried to enter the sports realm with Tyler. You got caught off guard. Yeah, no.
Angel Hernandez, my bad.
Angel Hernandez. Yeah, no, Angel Hernandez is the
worst umpire to ever umpire.
Okay, I'll tell you, the one union that does not need to exist is the umpires union. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh my God.
Well, sorry, Richard, is there anything you want to talk about? I'm sorry.
No, I actually I did not know about the story until just now.
Oh, okay. No,
but no, very very disheartening from Sega of America. But they've had a rocky history, so maybe I shouldn't be so surprised.
Yeah, to put it lightly. No, yeah, sorry. What were you gonna say, Connor?
No, just the Angel Hernandez thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But no, the umpires or the union should stay because all employment should be protected from big corporations. But yeah, Angel Hernandez should not be in the union.
How about this? The union stays, but we get robo-umps, and they're covered by the union. Balls and strikes don't need to be called by humans anymore. I don't care. AI can, not even AI, a TV camera can do it with a guy watching the camera.
No.
How about that? Yes, let's do that. Robo-umps.
No, that's one of the issues.
The cameras,
AI coming in and taking people's
the cameras will be detected by the union. I've got this covered. We don't need any more cowboys behind the fucking catcher going, oh, ball strike, whatever. Okay, anyway.
Generally, they're good. It's just Angel Hernandez is not.
Richard needs to go to bed, okay? Follow us on Twitter.
Oh, wow.
Richard, it's past your bedtime.
Follow us on... Oh, and you didn't have any tidbits, correct?
No tidbits this week, unfortunately. I will have some next week, I swear.
Okay. It'll be okay. If you don't, I'm going to go... not through your union and lay you off or something. I don't know, it's a dumb joke. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/Gaming Discourse. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, eat lots of turkey, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.